on the phone with John Liang. He is the director and co-writer of the new movie Recovery, which I got a chance to see a few days ago. And John, I just wanted to tell you, I absolutely loved it, man. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, is this your first feature-length film that you've directed?
It is. This is my first feature film as a director.
Okay, well, you did great. I loved it, and I've got some questions for you, if that's okay.
Of course.
My first question for you is, how did you come up with the idea or the storyline for the movie, and why did you choose a veteran as the main character and make her the main protagonist?
Well, my co-writer, Scott Rayshap, and I had wanted to do something about the opioid addiction crisis in America, and we'd wanted to do a horror movie for a while. We'd written several other scripts together, and we wanted to try something new. And, so we came up with the idea of, what if we did a psychological thriller where, in addition to the murderer, the real monster is addiction.
Right.
And as for why our main character is a veteran, veterans' issues are very personal to me. My grandfather fought in World War II, stormed the beaches of Normandy, liberated Dachau, and he, and my mom would always say that when he came home, he was a hero. He was praised and honored, and just that kind of respect, really doesn't exist anymore. We're embroiled in two wars, and politicians on both sides of the aisle love to trot out the troops when it's time to go to war.
Right.
Get support, gin up their bases, but, who's there for them when they, our men and women, come home?
Right. That's one of the... sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and so just, honestly, taking all of those elements, and horror's really always been a great genre for communicating political ideas without really hitting people over the head. It all just kind of came together from those disparate elements, and that's really how the core idea came into being.
Cool. I like that, and what I was going to say, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. My stepdad also, he was a Vietnam veteran, and he suffered from PTSD, and he passed away 5 years ago. But
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's fine. But the reason that the movie, I guess, hit me so much was because I could kind of relate through seeing what he went through, kind of like you were explaining about your family. They don't get the respect, and I think that's an interesting topic, for a horror movie. And like you said, you can throw those political aspects in there in a horror movie, like you can't do with other genres of film.
Exactly.
So, and my next question for you kind of pertains to the same thing. Many war movies that portray veterans, people who come home with PTSD, they make the trigger like a bad person, for example, like a terrorist or something like that. Why would Ronnie, who is the main character in the movie, she's the one that's suffering, the Vietnam vet, or not Vietnam vet, the veteran, Afghanistan. Thank you. Why is her trigger a person that she accidentally killed, and why is she still trying to kill him? When she has these visions and stuff.
Well, it's really that stress and aggravation, irritation really triggers her, and it flashes her back to the worst moment in the war for her, which was the accidental killing of this innocent civilian, this man who appears to her in the visions, in the hallucinations. And the idea behind that was that, in life he was this innocent man, but he's come to represent anything and everything she did wrong in the war. He's almost the avenging angel of all her mistakes embodied in the spirit of one man. Yeah. And so that's why when she's triggered, she sees him, she flashes back to that moment, which was the worst moment of her time overseas.
Right. And I really like that. I think that was a great way to portray it. And I think that that's one of the things that made the movie more interesting, because you kind of got that, but at the same time, you really don't know who this man is, where he was at, why she, accidentally killed him. I mean, it kind of touches on it, but I like that, because sometimes I think less is more. And I think you got that across with that.
Thank you, Michael. We didn't want to hit the audience over the head. We didn't want to spoon-feed them an explanation. We wanted to give them enough information that they wouldn't be, that they would know where this came from, and then they could go from there, instead of, beating them over the head with an, exposition.
Oh, absolutely. I love movies that make me think and wonder and, kind of come to my own conclusion. And I think you succeeded at that, and then some. And I mean that as a 100% compliment. Like, way to go.
Thank you very much.
And this one is from me. Those other two were from Galaxia. She's one of my admins in the horror group that we run. And she was originally going to do this interview, and she had a sick family member and couldn't do it, so I'm filling in for her. But this one is my...
sorry to hear that.
This is my... Thank you. My question for you is... have you always been a horror movie fan since childhood, or did you come on it later? And what are the things that kind of drove you in the direction of horror?
I have always been a horror movie fan. My mom really got me into movies at a very young age, and one of the movies that we did bond over, and actually one of her favorite movies, was The Shining.
Awesome.
And we have a movie where our characters are trapped by a blizzard, so obviously that was a big influence on Recovery. But I grew up watching a lot of John Carpenter movies. He was also another big influence. And I love all kinds of different movies, but in the last few years, I've gotten more into horror because we're very blessed. We're living in a horror renaissance.
Right.
It's like it seems like every week there's another great new horror movie. We have modern classics now, like The Babadook, like It Follows, like The Witch.
Oh, I love It Follows. It Follows is such an underrated movie.
Oh yeah, and so it really is that. I didn't want to make just a straight drama about the opioid addiction crisis. Horror's always been great at smuggling in political messages, and I thought it would be more, both more entertaining for an audience and frankly more fun for me and my crew to make a horror film, and be able to bring in those political messages without being like some earnest, straightforward drama about someone suffering from addiction, suffering from withdrawal. Like I said, the idea here was to make a horror movie where addiction is the monster.
Right.
And so while I grew up with watching these films, I really got more into it in the last few years, living through this horror renaissance. And I would also just say that, it's very difficult to come up with, originally we had a much, more characters and stuff, and it's hard to make compelling films on a small budget, and I feel like horror gives you a lot more freedom people are a lot more forgiving of fewer locations or of fewer cast members if you're scaring the pants off them.
Oh, absolutely. And another thing I wanted to compliment you on, the character of Catherine. Man, for someone who doesn't have that many lines, her performance and your direction.
Oh, thank you.
Great job, man. I was compelled by that character, and if I'm not mistaken, she probably has, some of the fewest lines in the movies as far as the main characters go. And I enjoyed her portrayal. I like the relationship that her and Ronnie begin to have as the movie progressed. And, I just wanted to give you a shout out on that. And also, nothing beats a horror movie set in the snow. I live in Arkansas now, but I used to live in Wisconsin, so I love snow. And immediately when I saw that this movie was taking place in a blizzard and stuff, I mean, you had me from the very get-go from that, And
thank you.
I think there, I've always said, and I've heard some of my friends say this too, we would love to see like a actual Halloween, like Michael Myers Halloween movie set in the snow. That's something I've always dreamed of. So anytime I get a chance to watch a really good horror movie that takes place in the snow, it's always a good experience. And you gave me that with this film, and I really appreciate that.
Of course. Thank you so much. I mean, I would love to see that too, to see Michael or Jason traipsing through the snow. That would be super scary.
Yeah, and, you think about it, just like, just blood, just the color red, how it pops with, the white background.
On the white.
I mean, you can do so much with the visuals in that, and I really, can't understand why there haven't been, more horror movies that have done that, but hey, that puts you in an elite group already on your first feature film, so that's something cool right there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I thought that the blizzard really added a lot to the film as well. I thought we're trapping our characters. They can't just run away.
Yeah. And I also had kind of a hokey question. It was just for fun for me. How did you choose? I noticed the cell phones in the movie were those old flip phones. And I used to be obsessed with those flip phones, and I noticed that Ronnie's phone, I believe it was like one of those flip phones, and so was, I believe it was Dr. Taylor. Was that a conscious decision, or was that just because of the time that this happened, or where did that come about?
It's a conscious decision because, we really wanted the movie to be timeless and not dated. You see people's smartphones, or in movies now, you watch a movie from 10 years ago and you see like old cell phones, and it just takes you out of it.
Right.
And then in universe, just that the idea is that Dr. Taylor is older, Ronnie is using her phone to score drugs.
Right.
They're not going to have like iPhone 9s. They're going to have just something basic to make calls and maybe text people with. And so, I just think, frankly, on an aesthetic level, flip phones are more fun
exactly.
to look at and to play with than a smartphone that's just like a brick.
Right. And see, that's why it caught my attention. That's like one of the first things I noticed. And then when you got to the scene with Dr. Taylor and he's using a flip phone too, the first thing that popped in my mind was like, I've got to ask him if that was conscious or some other reason. And I'm so glad to hear that it was conscious. So I know we're running low on time here, but I do have one more question for you, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Yeah.
What can we expect from the current project you're working on right now? And I must say, I love the name of it. I don't know what it's about or anything, but We Only Come Out at Night. What can we expect from that?
We Only Come Out at Night is my next film. A lot of the same crew from Recovery are coming back.
Awesome.
And we're prepping it right now to shoot in 2020. It is a film about a gang of drug-dealing vampires.
Oh, great. Dude.
who infiltrate this town and they kidnap this kid's mom, and, I mean, he's not a kid, he's like in his early 20s, but he has to go and save his mom from the gang of drug-dealing vampires who are taking over his town.
Wow, I like that.
So, thank you. We're really excited. We are working on it as we speak, and we are going to shoot it and release it in 2020. So awesome. I'm very excited for that. It has some of the same DNA as Recovery, but it's also its own film. So I think that it's going to be. I think if anyone, if you like Recovery, I think you will like this. It's similar, but it's not going to feel repetitive. You know, right. It's not going to feel like wheels spinning. There's new stuff in it too. So that's what we are working on right now, and I'm very excited about it.
Awesome. Well, I wish you the best of luck on that as well as Recovery, and hopefully whenever we only come out at night, whenever that's released, hopefully I can get back in touch with you and do another interview. I would love that, Michael. I would love to be talking about We Only Come Out at Night with you in 2020, you know, absolutely. This has been a pleasure. I hope that we can make that happen, and I just want you to know also, I will promote Recovery as much as I can on our Facebook and social media because I enjoyed it. I think everybody needs to check it out if you're a horror fan, especially if you love the snow and kind of the psychological aspect. And it comes out tomorrow. Am I correct? June the 4th on VOD tomorrow? Yes, June the 4th, VOD and on DVD. So you can watch it on, you know, if you have a DVD player still, or you can stream it. It's on a bunch of streaming platforms. Awesome. June 4th. Well, I'm definitely going to go out and pick up a copy on DVD because I enjoyed it that much. So. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. That means a lot. Hey, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate your time, Michael. Okay. Of course. Have a great evening. You too. Okay, thank you.